Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Returning listeners, great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. Super excited to bring today's episode to you. I was excited putting it together. I was excited doing the research, and I'm excited to share it with you. And the title of our episode is very straightforward. It's what it's all about today: how to overcome negative thoughts and start taking action. That's what we do here at Salty Ginger Talk. We don't do fluff. We don't do feel-good bullshit. We give you real tools. We tell you the truth. We give you the science to back it up. And that's what we're talking about today, is the science behind why we allow negative thoughts to prevent us from taking action. So let's just jump into the episode here, right? Here we go. Negative thoughts, anxiety, self-doubt, overthinking. All of us fall victim to some of that in some way, shape, or form. It happens to all of us. We all have it going on. And those are the things we need to overcome if we want to build the life that we're trying to build. So the question becomes, how do you do that? We today are going to give you science-backed strategies so you can finally take action and build the life you actually want. If you listen to the entire episode, if you make it all the way through today, you are going to learn why your brain defaults to negativity, the real cause behind your anxiety, how fear of the unknown, fear of change, and fear of failure hijack your mind, and the exact mental tools that you can use to break you out of that loop. So, if you're excited about that and you want to learn that stuff, stick with us. Without further ado, let's just get right after it, okay? Here's section one. Why do we have negative thoughts? What is the scientific reason? What does data show? What does studies show? What have doctors and psychologists and scientists who have studied this for decades tell us about why this happens to us? Most people think there's some flaw in the system when they have these thoughts. That's why they overthink. That's why they have anxiety. Nope, hate to break it to you. You are not special. Everybody's brain has actually evolved to be negative and to look for and defer to negative thoughts first. So that's called the negativity bias. Neuroscientists have shown that the human brain remembers, notices, and prioritizes negative information more strongly than positive information. Why does it do this? Plain and simple, it used to keep us alive. We have, in the last 100 or 150 years or so, lived a much easier and safer existence than our ancestors did. It used to be there were many, many things that could kill you the minute you stepped out of your cave, out of your hut, onto the plains, onto the Serengeti, wherever it was that you lived. There were predators out there. There were diseases that would kill you. Terrain would kill you. Weather could kill you very easily. We don't have those same things anymore. But our brain has not evolved as fast as our society has. So what happens is our brain is still scanning for threats because that's what it's built to do. It's not scanning for opportunities. It's scanning for things that are going to kill us. That's what it thinks. The problem is our brain can't discern which things that are negative will actually kill us and which ones won't. So it treats them all the same. So that's problematic because it creates a fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown activates your amygdala. That is where fight or flight happens. That's the part of your brain that handles danger. That's the part of your brain that said, oh, fuck, that is a saber-toothed tiger. I gotta run. I gotta fight. I gotta hide. The fear of the unknown, even in today's society, is interpreted the same way your brain did, the same way your brain interpreted, or your ancestors' brain interpreted, a saber-toothed tiger when it stepped out of the cave. That's why thinking about a new career, a new relationship, or a new goal triggers trepidation and anxiety and doubt and negative thoughts in you. It is unknown. It is change. Our brain is wired to treat it with skepticism and treat it like a threat. Your brain doesn't hate success. Your brain hates uncertainty. And it's important to remember, because knowing that that's how our brain is working is how we're going to fix it when we get down into our tips to tell you how to get past this break these cycles and start taking action on the things that you want. Very closely related to the fear of the unknown is fear of change. Change requires your brain to burn more energy. Therefore, your brain interprets it as a risk. Your brain says, why am I having to crank it up a couple of notches? Something's wrong. When things are normal, I don't have to worry like this. I don't have to think like this. I don't have to process these things. There must be something wrong if I have to go into overdrive. Scientists call this cognitive load aversion. Your brain is trying to conserve the energy for when it actually needs to keep you alive. So it views any change, anything different, as a threat. This is why staying at a bad job feels safer than taking a risk on a better one. We know what the problems are right now, and we've developed coping mechanisms, and we've stayed alive by existing in this shitty environment. So better to stay in the shitty environment than take a risk and do the proverbial out of the frying pan into the fire. That's no way to live your life, though. But your brain is literally wired to default to that option. So that's what we've got to learn to change. Again, there it is, the fear of change. That's why it happens. Our brain knows what the problems are now. Better to deal with the problems we know about than take a risk and deal with unknown problems, right? Fear of the unknown, fear of change. Closely linked. Brain is designed to push both of those away and say, no, let's just keep things the way they are. But that's not how we grow as people. So we've got to learn to overcome that. Also closely related, fear of failure, right? We've all felt that. We've all heard it. What if I fuck this up? What if it goes bad? What if I look stupid and everybody laughs at me? What if I face financial ruin, right? All those terrible thoughts that we have that pop into our mind. Studies show that the brain reacts to failure similarly to physical pain. So your brain is wired to treat failure very similar to how when you touch the hot pan on the stove and you burn yourself. It's no wonder people avoid taking risks when your brain associates the negative possible outcomes from those risks with physical pain, like getting kicked in the teeth or touching the hot pan or rolling your ankle, whatever it is. That's how your brain associates those things, the failures. It associates with them very similarly to the way it associates with physical pain. So if you think about it that way, your anxiety, your fear of failure, your concern, your trepidation, it's not a character flaw. It's old software in your brain running in a modern environment, right? If you used a Macintosh from the 80s or 90s, you'd be like, what a piece of junk this is. Unfortunately, our brains are like Macintoshes from the 80s dealing in a 2025 tech environment. They haven't evolved as fast as society has, as the rest of our world has, and we're running old software in a new environment. So we've got to figure out how to change that on our own, all right? So let's start talking about some ways we can do that. The first thing to remember is negative thoughts are not facts. Just because you think something doesn't make it true. Just because you hear something doesn't make it true. People make a crucial mistake here. They believe every thought that shows up in their head. Psychological research is clear on this, though. A thought is not a command. It's not reality. It's just a mental event. By the way, your brain produces over 50,000 thoughts a day on a normal day. Most of them are random. Most of them are repetitive. And unfortunately, most of them are fear-based. So your brain is running the software over and over again, coming up with the same result. But here's the key. You don't have to obey them. You don't even have to argue with them. You just have to learn to neutralize them so you can take the actions that you want. It's that simple. But we've got to remember, just because a thought pops into our head doesn't make it true, doesn't make it real, doesn't make it valid. It's just a thought. We can control that, and we're going to learn how to do that. Okay? Now, how do those negative thoughts stop action? They create a loop, plain and simple. Here's the loop. You have fear. That fear leads you to avoidance. That avoidance minimizes the fear and provides you relief. Now you're good until, that same thought pops up again. You go through that same loop again. Fear, avoidance, relief, repeat. Fear, avoidance, relief, repeat. Sound like a fun way to live? It is not. And a lot of you know that because you're living that way in multiple areas of your life. Every time you avoid something that scares you, your brain learns. You're teaching your brain, oh, avoiding this makes me safe. It makes me feel okay. Let's just keep avoiding it. We know that's not right. We know that's not going to get us where we want to be, but the software in our minds is designed to run that way, and it's fucking us over because we're not intervening and teaching it a different outcome. That's our job. When we don't do that, that's how we get stuck for years. How many of you have been stuck for years in a shitty job or a shitty relationship or a shitty living environment because you were afraid of what else lay out there and you knew you could deal with whatever your problems were now? Avoidance feels good in the moment, but it kills our potential long term. And we're not going to accept that. We're not going to accept a mediocre life. Good enough is not good enough, plain and simple. We can do better. We've got to learn how to control those thoughts, how to overcome those thoughts, how to break that loop and start taking action, right? So this is where we get into some of the practical tools that are science-backed from real research, tested methods, from cognitive psychology, from neuroscience, and behavioral science. These will work. This is not me spitballing and saying, I think you should do this, or, hey, I did this and it worked. These are science-backed techniques by which you can control your thoughts, break these habit loops, break these negative thought loops, and start taking action. All right? So here we go. Get your pen and pencil out. However you take notes, you're going to want to write all this stuff down and remember it. Number 1, label the thought. This is called cognitive diffusion in psychological terms. When a negative thought pops up, name it. Assign a name to it. You've got to label it. That's the fear of failure talking. That's the part of my brain that hates uncertainty. This is just an anxious prediction, not a fact, right? We can do those things. Studies in ACT therapy, ACT is an acronym for acceptance and commitment therapy, show that labeling thoughts reduces their emotional intensity by up to 70% because it's not an unknown anymore. It's not ethereal. It's not floating around in the mist. We've labeled it and given it something that we can identify it with. So our action step here is for the next week, when a negative thought shows up, the first thing we're going to do is say, my brain is telling me, and then whatever the thought is, and watch the power drain. Watch the air go out of the balloon. Watch the anxiety and then the fear and the unknown start to dissipate simply by labeling it, right? Label the thought, cognitive diffusion. That's going to be tool 1, step 1 for us. All right. Tool number 2 that you can use is called the 5-minute rule, 5-minute action rule. Behavioral science is very clear. Action reduces anxiety better than thinking does. You're not going to think your way out of your fear. You're not going to research your way out of your fear. You're not going to prepare your way out of your fear. The only way to get past your fear is to start taking action. Instead of trying to kill the whole thing at once, eat the elephant all at once, boil the ocean, whatever acronym or phrase or saying you want to insert here, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to try to do small steps. We're going to commit to 5 minutes of whatever it is we're avoiding. Just 5 minutes, not the whole task, not the from start to finish, not crossing the goal line and spiking the football. 5 minutes. That's it. We're going to commit to doing 5 minutes of whatever it is we're avoiding. Period. This is going to trick our brain out of the overwhelm and help us build momentum. So that's what we're going to do this week. Pick one thing that you've been avoiding and do it for 5 minutes today. Then stop. Don't do 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Momentum will take over. You do the same thing tomorrow, watch it become 6 minutes, watch it become 8 minutes. Pretty soon you're going to be like, what was I even afraid of? I can't even believe this. Doesn't matter what it is. I'll use me as an example. As a kid, I used to hate picking up the phone and calling people I didn't know. So my mom would make me do it. I'd have to call stores and ask questions. I predate the internet. That's how old I am. I'm an old bastard. And so the only way to get information used to be either talk to people directly or call people. I never minded going up and talking to people because I could kind of see what was going on. But I was scared to death of picking up the phone and calling people. So my mom made me do it. Call them and ask them what the price is. Call them and find out how long they're open. Call them and find out what movies are playing. All those things used to be things you had to do if you wanted information. She made me do it, and I'm better off because of it, Good job, Mom. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Science-backed. 5-minute action rule. Pick something you've been avoiding. Commit to doing it for 5 minutes, period. You're going to get over the hump. You're going to get started. You just got to do 5 minutes. That'll get you going down the road. Okay, tool number 3. We're going to pick 3 scenarios. What is the worst case scenario for the thing that we're considering? What is the best case scenario for the thing that we're considering? And most importantly, what is the most likely scenario for the thing that we're considering? Because the problem with our brain is it defers to the negative, and negative thoughts exaggerate outcomes. How often, right? We've seen it in movies where they have, what could go wrong? And then they show a scene where the whole thing devolves into chaos and the person is ostracized or they're murdered or whatever, right? We've all seen that in movies. That's why it's in movies. It's because everyone can relate to it, because that's how our brains work in real life. So instead of doing that, instead of just going to the negative and letting the negative take over, we're going to come up with these 3 scenarios. We're going to ask ourselves these 3 questions. What is the worst that could realistically happen from this thing I'm considering? What is the best that could realistically happen from this thing that I'm considering? And then most importantly, what is the most likely outcome from this thing that I'm considering? Research shows that this reframes emotional thinking into logical thinking, instantly lowering your fear. The example I use for this is drowning, right? So you can drown anywhere there's a pool of water. That includes the ocean, and it includes that puddle at the end of your driveway. If you passed out and your face was in that pool of water and you couldn't move, you'd drown. Now, is it more likely to drown in the ocean, or is it more likely to drown in the pool or the puddle at the end of your driveway? Clearly, it's the ocean. We don't always think that way. We don't always apply the rational thought like we just did in our drowning scenario. So we're going to force ourselves to do that every single time. You got a big decision. You've got a scary decision. You got a decision you're having trouble making. Come up with the 3 scenarios. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, most likely scenario. That will get your brain thinking logically, and you'll make better decisions, and you'll actually make decisions because you're not just looking at the negative. Okay? All right. Tool number 4, exposure by micro action. And that is exactly what it sounds like. The only way to eliminate fear is to face the thing causing fear slowly and consistently. Neuroscience calls this exposure therapy. Every small win, every little encounter helps rewire your brain to overcome this fear that you've got of whatever it is. Doesn't matter. I got a son that's deathly afraid of spiders. It's very funny because I did not know that. And he says he's afraid of spiders because I had him watch Arachnophobia when he was like 3 or 4 years old. And he is deathly afraid of spiders, which you can call me cruel. I find it fucking hilarious because he's a tough kid. He's a smart kid, but he has this irrational fear of spiders. But the only way he's ever going to get over that is by exposing himself to spiders slowly but surely. So what our action step here is remember what we talked about, micro action. We're going to break this big, scary, gnarly goal into 10 or 15 tiny steps. And then we're just going to do one of those steps each day for the next month. Doesn't have to be big. Doesn't have to be earth-shattering. Just has to be consistent. Your brain will stop interpreting that goal as a threat as you expose yourself more and more to the thing that you've been thinking about. Okay? All right. Now, tool number 5, replace what if I fail with what if I grow. Fear-based thinking uses negative future projections. This is how we got into the COVID mess. We allowed bad actors who used mathematics to build very faulty models to project out what could happen. Nobody questioned them. Everybody listened to them, and we let fear take over. We're going to flip that on its ear in our thinking so we can build the life that we want. Your brain responds differently to empowering questions. They activate the prefrontal cortex instead of the amygdala. The prefrontal cortex is where rational decision-making happens in your brain. And so we're going to force that engagement with our prefrontal cortex by asking questions. What are some examples of questions we can ask ourselves that are about growth instead of negativity? How about what if this works? How about what if I learn something transformative when I do this? How about what if this changes my life? Those are all growth-oriented questions. instead of negative, failure-based questions. So every time we think, what if this goes wrong? We're going to flip that and ask ourselves, what if this changes everything? That doesn't mean be irresponsible. It doesn't mean don't do your homework, don't get educated, don't plan. We're not saying any of those things. What we're saying is you can't sit on the sideline and chew your fingernails and rock back and forth and expect a good outcome. You've got to get in the game. And if you use the tools we're talking about here, it'll help you get in the game, build momentum, go after the things that you want. What if this changes everything? That's a great question we should be asking ourselves. All right. And then the last thing here is just the straight up truth. Action is always the antidote to whatever problem you're afraid of. It's always action that solves it. Always. I rarely make global statements, but I'm making that one. Action cures anxiety. Action cures depression. Action breaks this loop and allows you to move forward with your life. Your life doesn't change when your thoughts change. Your thoughts change when your behavior does. That's where we want to be. Confidence comes from action. Clarity comes from action. The better life that you want comes from action. The longer you wait for the perfect mindset, the longer you're going to stay stuck where you're at. And that's just the truth. Action is always the antidote. It's always the cure. It's always the solution. If you want a better life, the sooner you start taking action, the closer you are to building that better life that you want. Okay? So, you are not your thoughts. You are not the things you're afraid of. Anxiety is not a life sentence. It's a signal, and you have a choice. You can listen to the signal, or you can train your brain to overcome the signal and recognize when the signal is just old software giving you bad data in a new environment. Your brain's job is to protect you. Your job is to take control of your brain and lead it so it protects you in the best way possible. Negative thoughts lose their power when you take control, when you take action, and when you build evidence that you can do hard things. So that's the key. Start small. Start today. Start with 5 minutes. You just gotta start. Your future, the one that you want, the one that you sit and think about, the one that you put on your vision board, the one that you write in your journal, the one that you talk to your friends about, it's out there waiting for you. You've got to go get it. You've got to take action. Okay? So, like I said, we were super excited about this episode. I think there's tons of valuable stuff in here. If it's good to you and it makes sense to you, send it to someone else in your life who could use it. Because we can all use a kind of refocusing conversation every once in a while to say, hey, I'm not getting it done. I'm not doing the things I should be doing. It's on me to fix that. And I'm tired of doing what I'm doing. I'm going to start taking steps, start taking action, start building the life I want. So hope this helps you do it. We think about it every once in a while because we're not perfect. We have to have these talks with ourselves too. Nobody gets it right 100% of the time. We all need coaching. We all need training. We all need some inspiration or an outside force to kick us in the ass sometimes and say, hey, you're better than the way you're living right now. Start getting after it. All right. James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to all of our social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to on our website. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. We put episodes out like this. We have episodes where we interview people who will talk about how they took action in their lives, especially after bad things happened, things they didn't like, negative things, tough things happened to them. What did they learn from them? How did they apply those lessons as they move forward? And how did they take action to build the life that they want? It's all great stuff. It's going to help you get to where you want to be. You don't want to miss any of it. So make sure you catch our next episode. We'll see you there.